Hey guys, Joe Miles here with Osseo Gear. This is the Mission Whitetail podcast. We're going to be doing a deep dive into what it truly takes to kill these mature bucks. We're going to step outside the box and look at the why for gear, tactics, training, and more importantly, the mindset from over 35 years of chasing these magnificent animals all over North America. Thank you for following along and welcome to Mission Whitetail.
All right, guys, Mission Whitetail, welcome back. Got my good buddy Adam Hayes. He is a absolute regular now. I guess you need to start co-hosting this thing with me. You and I talk all the time, and we're on the podcast together all the time. Mr. Hayes, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man. It's the last 10 days of October, so I look forward to this week all year long.
Yeah, I hunted this morning, first sit in South Carolina. Saw 4 does, an 8-point, a nice young 8-point, chasing 2 of the does. Saw 3 big boar hogs, almost shot one of them. But I had my whitetail arrow, or my arrow that's tuned perfectly, and I was trying to get in my quiver to get not a flimsier arrow, but one that I was not afraid to expel through the shoulder blades of a big South Carolina river swamp boar, and I could not get it into my bow quick enough, and he was gone into the bushes, as they say, before I could get an arrow in him. And then I saw a big bobcat.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a heck of a morning.
Active morning.
Yeah, how about you?
I sat last night because this cold weather finally hit. We had rain all day Sunday, all day, and the temperature really dropped. But it was high pressure yesterday, just, one of those days where stuff's going to be moving. And, man, I was surrounded last night. I actually had a buck kind of grunting chasing a doe around last night. But I think I saw 10 or 11 different bucks last night. And, they were all 1, 2, maybe a 3-year-old, but they were everywhere, moving big time.
Good. Well, let's dive right into it, man. I feel like last time, I guess I could share. I did shoot a nice buck in Texas. I got invited back down to that ranch where I shot that 200 last year, and shot a nice 10-point or 11-point, excuse me. Shot a nice 11-point down there, and was tickled to get him, and starting to got to meet the sons of the owner or the owners of the ranch. Really nice guy. Got to hang out with him for a while, ate dinner with him one night, and so hopefully we'll get to go back down there again, later in the year or even next year. So love that brush country. So yeah, got one under the belt, as they say.
Well, it's always good to break the ice.
It is indeed. Speaking of breaking the ice, let's break the ice and get right into this. You mentioned right when we started, last 10 days of October. Why is that your favorite time to hunt?
Probably because I've shot 3 200-inch deer in that 10-day period. That would be right at the top of the list of reasons.
Yeah, but, and probably some more in Boone and Crockett's then too.
Yeah, I don't know what the total number would be for these last 10 days, but it's definitely my favorite. I think when you're hunting a specific deer, when they're still on a strict food source, strict feeding pattern, but we're right there on the verge, where bucks are going to start, nosing does, start looking around. I had a buck, grunting last night chasing it was just a young buck, but, he's getting the urge, and I think we're getting to that point where the big ones are going to start, they're going to be like a horse at the starting gate, just waiting for an excuse to move early.
Mm-hmm.
We're right there on the edge. So that, getting some colder weather, red moon's coming back around. You usually get one good red moon phase for a few days here towards the end of the month. So it just kind of all lines up. And, once they start traveling, you just never know, what those specific deer are going to be doing in a couple weeks. So just always have my best luck.
When do you normally, how far into November before you see them, especially, specifically Ohio, Kansas, Illinois, when in November do you see that? Okay, they're gone. They're with does. Around when do you start seeing that?
Well, last year everything happened a little bit early, and that big deer that I was chasing last year that got killed, that 200, he was locked up with a doe on the 2nd and the 3rd of November, but everything was shifted early because of the moon and that whole formula that kind of follow to figure out when they're going to be breeding. But it was all early last year. But I would say typically once the second week in November rolls around, most of the mature bucks, at least on my home farm, they're gone.
Yeah. So say after the 7th, you've got kind of, let's call it the 25th of October to the 5th or 6th of November, and then getting a tight funnel and hold on to your hat and keep your head on a swivel.
Yep. Once you get there, you know as well as I do, it's all about timing the stand in the right spot after that, hunting your rut funnels and yeah.
But, it's interesting because this is the time that when you have found that buck you want to hunt, this is that time where you get to continue hunting him and you get to beat him, right? When the rut's going, you can kill him. Obviously, he's probably going to be with the doe, chasing a doe, looking for a doe, acting crazy. But right now, you can still be very strategic about how you hunt a particular deer.
Yeah. Yeah, we're coming off the October lull, which, they're kind of locked down and doing the same thing every day, which makes them really patternable, really vulnerable. But now they're, like I said, they're right on the edge of starting to move a lot more because things are getting so close, but they're still kind of, like you said, doing that same thing every day. So I think the odds kind of tilt in your favor here the last 10 days of catching them moving just a little bit earlier, just a little bit more, just because the combination of factors, that everything's kind of lining up.
How about mornings?
I've never been much of a morning guy in October, just because it's so hard to beat them back into their bedroom before they're in there, when they're on a strict feeding pattern. But gonna really start looking at mornings here the end of October, 1st of November, especially those mornings where you get a overhead or underfoot moon anywhere from daylight till 2 to 3 hours after. In Kansas, all those big deer I shot in Kansas at like that 3 years in a row, those were all late morning hunts. It's just like once November gets close and those bucks are really starting to get the itch and move a little bit more, it seems like those mornings are even better because they don't want to give up, in the morning.
Yeah.
They want to check for that last doe before they go back to bed.
Yeah, I mean, I hunted this morning in South Carolina. We're way ahead. Like they're they're already breeding here. I've gotten multiple buddies have sent pictures of South Carolina bucks, mounted does. My cameras here in South Carolina have been going nuts. The big swamp buck actually daylighted. One picture of him. Wells, who in our office, he got a picture of one of the deer he's after, right up on top, not breeding her, but about to breed a doe. So and then this morning, I had a doe come through, and a buck was with her right behind her, too young to shoot, too small to shoot, but it's going here. So we're weeks ahead of where the Midwest is, but we'll also have breeding that's going on in January. So, I mean, it's pretty wild. You get from really the first, call it the 10th of October all the way into January, deer will be breeding in South Carolina because we've got so many deer and such a, you always and never, two words you don't use, but you have, quite a few places that the buck-doe ratio is so out of whack that it's just really, really hard to do.
I had no idea it started that early down there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. So I'm gonna be, and I'm hunting mornings now. I hunted this morning, and for me, I just love the mornings more, especially rut time of year, because the thermals are rising then once it gets going. And the afternoon, you got dark to mess with. It's going to get dark on you and you got to leave. If I want to sit and stay until 10, 11, 12, I can stay right there in the tree.
That's one thing that Andre told me one time, because I asked him why he likes mornings so much. He's like, you never run out of daylight.
That's a good point. Yeah, but I talked to Justin Hollingsworth last year, a year before, and I think in Andre's older age, he likes to get that breakfast in. So Justin said he got a text, and the text was, "Do you smell that?" And Justin was like, "No, I don't smell anything." He goes, "I think that's bacon frying, isn't it? I think that I'm ready to get down and go get some breakfast."
I texted him yesterday morning, and he was out hunting yesterday morning. So I think he likes mornings more than he likes evenings.
I do too. I think if I look back on it, big deer wise, both morning and evening, I've probably been equally successful. I mean, I think about the 2 deer in Illinois. Well, heck, all 3 of those on the 29 were afternoon hunts, and they were the last week. Well, I think one of them was like the 3rd or 4th of November, but the other ones were either the day before Halloween or Halloween. So it was that very end, and they were afternoon hunts.
Yep. I thought that those were all afternoon hunts.
Yep.
Yeah. But I can't really hunt mornings. Well, I can, but I just basically have the food source here at home on my home farm. I don't really have access to the bedding areas, but I have noticed that the later in the season it gets, they will come through, half hour after daylight, to hit the food one more time before they go back to bed. So mornings do get better in November here, but in October, I mean, there's no sense in even going out because you're blowing everything out of the field.
All right, let's paint a scenario, because I'm sure there's a lot of guys that are in this. Let's call it predicament or whatever you want to say. Let's throw a strategy out there. You have access to hunt a property. You have got some nighttime pictures of the deer that you want to shoot. You don't know exactly where that buck is bedded. You do know that he's been hitting, call it whatever, call it mineral, call it a corn pile, call it a food plot, acorn trees. He is, you do know where he is feeding or where he is showed up sometimes feeding, but it's all been at night, and we're getting into the end of October. What would be your strategy for a situation like that? Because I bet you, out of the people listening to this podcast right now, 90% of them are in that situation. They have a buck, they've acquired a buck they want to kill, whether it be in-state, out-of-state, Ohio, South Carolina, wherever it may be, Illinois, Kansas, whatever it is. They're looking at calendars, they're looking at moon positions, they're looking at the red moon, they're looking at weather. What would be your break it down for everybody, because you kind of are the master of the end of October. So walk us through what you would do in that situation. Well, I mean, heck, we don't have to talk about the deer, but let's just say, I mean, that's kind of what's going on with one of the deer you're hunting in another state. Am I wrong?
No, you're right.
Okay, so there you go. So let's just, and have I described that situation exactly right? I mean, you know where that deer's feeding, you know the scrapes he's hit at nighttime. I mean, I think you probably have an idea of where he's bedded, but don't know exactly where he is bedded. But I know you got a ton of history there, so let's, even if you do know right where he's bedded, let's pretend like you don't. Just walk us through what your plan is on that buck. So
this deer's 7 years old. I've got a ton of history with him. He did kind of the same thing every year. And then I think what actually happened is he got his butt whipped by a more mature bully buck on the farm, and he disappeared on us for 2 years. And that deer got killed last year, and now he's shown back up. And he's kind of doing some of the same things he was doing, a few years ago. But the only daylight pictures I got of that deer so far this season were during the last red moon. He showed up 2 nights. It was either the 11th or 12th and 12th and 13th, and that was the first red moon phase of October. And then it's been all daylight or all dark since then. So the red moon comes back around this weekend, and it's all about trying to predict what they're going to do before they ever do it. I mean, that's what the entire game is about. We got to try to predict what he's going to do before he does it. So, stands to reason to me that deer is probably going to daylight again when the red moon comes back around. There's obviously days every month where the weather is going to trump everything. You have a major cold front come in, which has not hit Illinois like it has here. But, if you get a major weather pattern that's going to increase activity, that's one thing that's going to make me dive into a spot. And another thing is the red moon coming up, because I'm looking for 2 things. I'm either looking for the perfect wind for that buck so he feels comfortable enough to get up and move before dark, combined with either a good weather pattern that's going to increase activity or the red moon hitting in the evenings. One of those 2 combinations. If you can get, a red moon coming up, a perfect wind, and a weather pattern that's going to increase activity, that's the perfect storm. But I'm banking, because the weather isn't changing there, I'm banking on the right wind and the right moon.
All right, so that's the conditions that you're looking for, and you have got nighttime pictures of this buck in a scrape, or let's do both. Let's paint both pictures. You got nighttime pictures of him on a scrape, on a field edge, and then you've got nighttime pictures of him in food. And you don't know exactly where he is bedded, but you have an idea. And you're looking out and say it's going to be Halloween, and you've got, I don't know it, I mean, people would have to get the moon guide to see, but let's say it was a red moon on Halloween night at 5:30 p.m. You're going to have high pressure. You're going to have the perfect, we'll talk about the wind in just a second. You are going to have cooler than normal temperatures, and then you've got the perfect wind for that deer to get up. Are you saying where would you set up? Would you set up on the scrape? Would you set up on the field? Would you look at your trail camera pictures and say, I'm going to set up where I have gotten him the closest to dark? I mean, before it gets dark, like he hit the scrape before he hit the food plot, or he hit the food plot before he hit the scrape, or he hits the food plot more regularly, or he hits the scrape more regularly. Where are you going to set up for this deer that you've got the nighttime pictures and you are predicting based on forecast of moon, weather, wind? Where are you going to set up to kill this deer?
Well, your red moon nights are going to be the nights where they're going to be hitting the food sources earlier than normal. So I want to be right on the edge of the food source.
Okay.
And that's where I've been getting his pictures at. We kind of got it set up strategically where the farmers left some corn standing for me. So, if anybody knows anything about farmers in Illinois, there ain't going to be hardly any crops left standing. I mean, they get on that stuff like right now, and they don't mess around. So I've already found out, through him that there's nothing else standing in the area except the corn that he left. So, I mean, I know that's going to be a prime food source, although the acorns have been, unreal this year out there. So, I mean, yeah, I want to be right on the edge of the food source on those evenings, because those are the best evenings to hunt the food. Everything's going to be up moving early, and that's, after following it for 30 years, I just know those are your best nights to hunt the edge of the food. I haven't been out there yet this season to actually be able to find any scrapes, although I knew a couple major breeding scrapes on that farm that are there year after year, and I have cameras on them. He hasn't hit them yet. But, I mean, I've got pictures of him going through acorns. I've got pictures of him heading back into a couple different bedding areas. I mean, I've been picking him up,
Yep.
all over the place. But the only place I'm getting him consistent is right there on the edge of the food, because, I mean, he's still a slave to his stomach right now, before the rut. So, I mean, I'm really focusing on the food. The only issue is the wind isn't going to cooperate at all. It doesn't look like here. They looks like we got 4 or 5 days of east winds coming the end of this week, which the way that this farm is set up and that corn, that wind's going to be blowing directly out into the field.
Okay.
Which is not, that's not a perfect scenario, because I like to have wind coming back into the timber, so once they get in the field, they feel comfortable. And that's not the case, or not going to be the case. The wind's going to be blowing directly out into the field, and this is a big, big cornfield, and there's no trees, on the downwind side of it. I mean, I've been talking to the farmer about it, and I mean, we're actually thinking about maybe setting up a blind out in the field on the opposite side of the corn.
Mm-hmm.
And just, take a bunch of stalks and wrap that blind in the stalks, because once those deer get out in the corn, they're going to be downwind of all my tree stands. So I just don't know if I'm going to be able to get away with doing that. So we might have to completely change gears. And I'm just not a big ground blind fan, but I mean, last giant deer I killed out there, I killed out of a blind because the wind was wrong. And there are certain situations where if a big buck's in an area, you got to hunt it no matter what the wind's doing, and that's about the only way I'm going to be able to pull it off. So
that's a good point. Is that you talk about, I think it was Miles Keller, correct me if I'm wrong, talked about hunting from the outside in. Meaning you stay out and you work your way into the deer, but it comes a time where you've got to be aggressive, right? And you only get one end of October, and while there's they may trip up and show up a little bit earlier than normal, and so now you're having to get creative and say, okay, east winds blowing out in the field. Now, what do you think that will do to him as far as him not being able to smell that field as he's coming up to it? Obviously, that's been through your head. I mean, we've talked about this a million times about, giving him the wind where you're just off wind from him, so he's like bebopping through there. I can smell, and then bam, you got him. Whereas if this wind is blowing from the cover out into the field, what are your thoughts there? You just got to send it and try it?
Yeah, but what I've seen happen out there when we get that kind of wind in that particular spot, the bucks will, come out after the does and, let the does expose themselves and make sure that it's safe that way. Or they'll come in from an extreme angle, way down the end of the field, one spot or the other, and kind of circle out and around that corn, to get the wind. So, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I mean, I know that's probably my best chance of seeing that deer, and you just got to make the best of it. And I think the only way I'm going to be able to hunt it is have some kind of blind, because there's so many different trails that come out into that field. And I mean, they can literally come out from anywhere, and there could be, 15, 20 deer out there. And there's just no way, even you go one extreme or the next on the edge of that field that, you just never know where they're going to come from, and something's eventually going to get downwind of you, and then it's over. So,
all right, next, I guess question, and this is one I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, and we've talked about this some too. But it gets dark, deer's full of field. Field is full of deer. What are you laughing at, Andrew? The deer is full of field. The field is full of deer. Is your farmer going to come bump for you, or the way you're going to set this blind up, you can slip through the corn stalks, or what is your plan there?
Yeah, the only way to make it work is to have a farmer come in, drive through the field. The deer are used to that. They're in the fields all the time, so just have him come through after dark and blow them out of the field. I mean, otherwise, you go bebopping out of there after dark and blow them deer out of there, and that buck sees you, it's game over.
Yeah, over. All right, so End of October, you got a weird wind, so you're having to get creative. If you're gonna capitalize on October, the end of October, you have got to be a little bit aggressive and think outside the box on how you're going to hunt when you don't have the wind. But it sounds like you're going to have the temperature and you're going to have the moon.
Yeah. For me, I mean, the moon's going to be the main thing. Like I said, they're not getting a big drop like we are. The last time I looked anyway, in cold temperatures, so I'm kind of banking on the moon. But I mean, like I said, there's going to be certain days where the weather is going to trump everything, and then there's going to be days where that moon can trump everything. So you just gotta know, you gotta know when the weather's going to change. You gotta know when the moon's right, and just look at every tool in your arsenal and use it to your advantage. So
yeah.
I'll probably give that evening set 2 or 3 nights and see what happens. And if the wind is right, I might try a morning hunt after I've tried it in the evening a couple times, just because I know going into this farm in the bedding area that there's a good chance on bumping him out of there. So I really want to be careful about that. And I'd really prefer to kill him in the evening or try it a few times before I roll the dice on a morning hunt.
So if you do hunt mornings, would you get back in that ground blind, or are you going to get in one of your stands near the bedding?
Yeah, I've got stands pre-hung in those bedding areas, so yeah, it's not the sort of thing I like to do this time of the year, going into a bedding area and hanging a stand. I like to have that stuff pre-hung and ready to go, so it's a complete surprise, going in there.
Now, if you do not get this deer, which I'm pulling for you and counting on you to get him, if you do not get him the end of October, are you going to continue hunting this buck throughout the rut, or are you coming back home to hunt? What will be your plan there?
I think my plan is going to be to go over and give it a shot for a few days and see what happens. And if it doesn't pan out, I'll probably come home and then go back over, in another week and try it again.
Mm-hmm.
When we either have another good moon or a really good weather pattern, because I think the way everything's lining up this year, the peak breeding in the Midwest is probably going to be as typical as you can ask. Lockdown is going to be right in the middle of the month. So really the first 2 weeks building up to that in November should just be getting better and better every day. So I'll give it a shot for a few days, and then if nothing happens, I'll probably go back over that first week somewhere around the, 5th, 6th, or 7th. Sorry about that.
No, you're all good.
Yeah, probably right around the 5th through the 7th sometime, because evening hunts should be pretty good right about then as well. So that's kind of my plan with that deer.
Yep. Kansas for me, I will probably head out there next or around the 25th-ish. I'm going to obviously look at the weather, and it looks mild. It's not going to be hot. It looks like lows in the low 40s, highs in the upper 60s, middle of the day. So decent weather in Kansas for the end of October. The old Trax has got a couple spicy ones running around on it this year. So yeah, excited about that.
I kind of heard through the grapevine maybe there might have been a big one or two running around there.
Yeah. There's a big one or two. So we'll there was an 8-point I got in there 2 years ago that I was like, this thing is a tank. And it was just a clean 8, kind of funky beams, long 2s, long 3s, good brow tines. And, man, I got a picture of him last night on a scrape. And his body, which I did not think could get bigger, is bigger. And then he's got kickers coming off of 2s and 3s. And he looks like a 160-inch deer. But I think he's bigger than that because his body has to be 300 and something pounds. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's that typical Kansas.
Kind of like the last track buck.
Yes, a lot like him in his prime. Remember him in his prime? His neck, that thing was freaking. Yeah, he looks just like that. But the obviously the horns are different. He's an 8-point versus a
Yep.
a 10 with those flyers. But anyway,
No
yeah.
daylight.
No, not no daylight on him. There is a different buck in there that has daylighted. That's a pretty deer, and that one was down actually by the tracks themselves, all the way down. That would be the east end of the farm. No, excuse me. Yeah, the east end of the farm. That's right. Yep, by the tracks.
That kind of reminds me of a point I wanted to make earlier because a lot of guys say, if you only hunt the red moon, you're only going to kill deer on the red moon. Well, I focus on that and I focused on the weather, but like I said, I'm waiting for a good wind and a good moon or a good wind and good weather pattern. And if you get all three, it's, you got to do whatever you have to be in your stand. But the only time I will really veer from that is when I either witness a big deer making a mistake or get a picture of him making a mistake. Because there's trying to predict, activity, and then there's witnessing activity. When you witness it, it doesn't matter what the moon, what the wind, what the weather's doing. You got to get aggressive and get in there and kill them when they're showing up in daylight and making a mistake. So, that's a good point that I forgot to make, and you reminded me of it. But yeah, if I'm ever going to dive into a spot and I don't have the good wind, good moon, good weather, the only reason it's going to make me go in there is if I actually get daylight pictures or see him making a mistake, and then you just gotta roll the dice and get in there and make the best of the situation. So,
yeah, the weather you have got to. We have to look at all the pieces of the. I want to call them predictors. I don't have the terminology right, but I guess the factors, like
factors,
the movement factors. You've got to look at those, and the big one here at home, and I have found that all over too, is humidity too. If you get a real high humid day, man, it crushes movement. They do not like that stickiness here at all. It's pretty unbelievable when you get a big sticky, you just walk out in this muggy and you feel that high humidity, man, the deer just lock up. There is very little movement on those high humidity days.
That's interesting.
You don't get.
You would think they would be able to smell better on those kind of days. Does that make sense?
Yeah, normally on those high humid days, it's still too. You don't normally get a windy day or a good steady breeze with high humidity. You do some, again, always and never, but normally it'll be a real still, thick air, just gross. You walk out and I'm going to be sweating in this October because this humidity's so bad, and that's just always been a terrible day at home.
Yep, gotcha. Well, I'm glad I'm in Ohio.
Yeah. Speaking of Ohio, how about your Buckeyes?
I don't know, man. I think it's going to come down to a showdown between Ohio State and Indiana. Who knows what's going to happen in the Michigan game? You just never know, and you can throw records out the window every year when that game comes around. But, I think the only quarterback that's got a higher rating than Sayin is the kid from Indiana right now. They're putting some points on the board.
Yeah, I wish our teams played in a league where our last 6 games were unranked opponents. But we between both schools, that would be pretty. That'd be pretty neat. Instead of having to play 8 of your 9 conference games are against ranked opponents, makes it kind of tough. You get beat up, but you do what you got to do.
Yeah. Well, it'll all come out in the wash at the end.
Yes, it will. Oh, man.
Alabama seems to be getting tougher and tougher every week.
They look good against Tennessee, man. They did. Mm-hmm. They looked really good.
I was shocked when Miami got beat. That was something else.
Yeah, I was not expecting that, but it's wild, man. You know, somebody said it the other day, and I you know, people don't tune in to Mission Whitetail to hear about ESPN football commentary, so we'll get off of that. But you know, I heard somebody say with this new NIL stuff that nowadays the talent is getting very, very equal, you know, with different teams, and it all comes down to who can execute that day. Who can execute that day? That it used to be an Ohio State, a Michigan, I'll give you those, but then the entire SEC, they would just go in and dominate everything because they had all the talent. Now you guys have started buying the talent from us, and so it makes it's more of an even playing field now.
Yeah, I'm sure SEC never bought any talent.
No, not before NIL. Never. What are you talking about?
Never.
No.
Never happened.
No. Absolutely not.
I think it is starting to get to be a little bit more of a level playing field.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure. All right, back to deer. Let's see. Anything else kind of the end of October? I mean, we kind of painted a picture of what guys are going to be going through, and I think that's a lot of the people. I mean, if I look at Kansas right now, you know, I'm looking at, you know, nighttime pictures, and I'm going to be going out there at the end of October because, you know, again, I've looked at the weather, and I am actually, and it's a terrain thing. That's another thing you have to look at is how that farm lays out. Like the farm we were talking about earlier, you know, it's a long creek farm. You know, it's not very wide. It's a long creek farm. So I'm going to set up on that creek and where I can shoot to some scrapes. But for me, it's not really a food thing there. It's them coming through there. Maybe they are going to food. But I think it'll be more of a scrape thing for me. The bucks coming through there looking at scrapes and just wanting to – and I'll hunt mornings and evenings. I'll hunt both because that is such a remote place, you know, out there where it's located. So I'll be hunting mornings and evenings and you know, almost dive right into the funnel type hunting the end of October it's because of the way that farm is set up.
Yeah, and if guys haven't made that switch yet from having most of their cameras on food to moving them to the scrapes, now's the time to do it. Everybody I've been talking to is starting to see a lot more activity on the scrapes. You know, I've been starting to see a lot more scraping, you know, out checking cameras and you know, looking at stuff. So I mean, now's the time to kind of make that switch and start, you know, monitoring those scrapes, because that's where, you know, everything I saw last night was scraping, rubbing. You know, they're getting fired up. So.
Yep. I had another question I was going to ask you. Trail cameras, are you running them on video now when you put them on scrapes, or do you leave them on still, or all of the above?
Actually, I like the way Reveal has theirs set up, where you can set it up where it'll take a picture and a video, but it just sends you the picture, and if you get a picture of something good, you can download the video clip of it. So it's not eating up your storage by taking a bunch of video clips. You know, it's like a video on demand. So you look at all your pictures, you see something you like, then you can download the video that goes with it.
So it is taking, quote unquote, the video, or you have the option of doing that. It's just saving it in the ethosphere. Isn't that what it's called, Andrew? The ethosphere? Yeah, the ethosphere. That's where it stores all those videos, and then you can request it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess those videos are actually being stored on your... Are they being stored on the card? That's something I should probably know. I would imagine they are, and then if you want to see it, you just request it, and it'll you know, show up on the app. So they've got to be there. I don't think they're going to the cloud.
That's the ethosphere, Hayes.
Is that the ethosphere?
Yeah, that's the cloud is the ethosphere. All right, mock scrapes. Are you a mock scrape man?
Absolutely.
And are you a scent guy? Do you put scent in yours? You know, it seems like guys are 50-50. They're like, I'm going to create the scrape, let the bucks open it up. I'm not going to put anything in it. You know, what I have found, like South Carolina, we're not allowed to use natural urine or anything like that. We have to use synthetic. But what I have found with putting scent, either the orbital gland on the licking branch or urine or whatever it may be in the scrape itself, is it speeds it up. It seems like the deer find it quicker and are a little more comfortable. And so I some of the scrapes, depending on where they're located, I will put some scent in there, and some of them I will not. What's your process?
I actually have a couple big community scrapes on my farm that I keep sending it year round, and deer hit them year round. They might not actually be pawing at them year round, but they'll come in and check them. So they stay active, and it's just a cool way to keep tabs on the deer year round. But it depends on the time of the season, because the closer, like right now, I've just been running buck urine in my scrapes, but here towards the end of the month, I'll start putting a scrape lure in there that's a mixture of, buck and doe scent, and then, estrus scent after that. So, raw frozen scents, they got, as good a product as anybody. I've been to that farm, man. Those Amish guys they've got quite a setup in Pennsylvania, with their deer herd and the way they collect that stuff and then freeze it, and it seems to work pretty well. But yeah, I definitely, especially right now, start adding some stuff to those scrapes, especially the ones that are, within bow range of your stand.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you when you put when you're building your mock scrapes, do you put a licking branch in there? Do you use like a grapevine, rope scrape, anything like that, or you just use natural limbs that are just ones that they would naturally hit?
I like the ones with the natural limbs hanging down in them, and I've tried those ropes and didn't really have success with it. But I do use some of that orbital scent, and I found what works better for me is baling twine, because it's it's only about 1/4 inch, and you can get it right down in those bottles of orbital gland, and you can tie it on a branch, and it just hangs down, and it doesn't look as unnatural and as obtrusive as one of those great big ropes, but it's virtually the same thing.
Baling twine, like the tan colored baling twine.
Yep.
Like hay bale twine.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yep.
A mini rope scrape.
A mini rope. Yeah. I'm all about mini stuff,
Story of my life. You're preaching
Yeah.
to the choir. I guess I
Yeah.
need to get away from those big thick rope scrapes and get me some mini baling twine scrapes.
All that big stuff's overrated.
Oh, it's
anyway.
way
a waste.
overrated.
It's
Hurts
a
my
waste of
back.
time. Yep.
Hurts my back. Oh man, what else you got, Hayes?
I need to send you a picture of a buck that Clay's wife killed a couple nights ago up in northern Alberta.
Yeah, good one.
An absolute giant. It's probably pushing 190s.
Man, they have got some beast up there. Good gosh,
Yeah.
absolute hammers.
But it's been slow. That's the only big deer they've had on camera. It hasn't really got fired up there yet. I was supposed to be going up there next week, and he just hadn't had anything on camera. So hate to think about having to go up there late November, but that might be what's happening this year.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna put the ICO gear to the test. I got to get my plug in when I can.
I'm hoping that new Arctic, the new Arctic ICO line is going to come out here in the next couple weeks.
It's funny you say that. We might have a prototype we could send up your way that
Yeah.
I'm not going to spill any beans, but I think I just spilled some beans.
Has it got a cord to run to plug in for the heater and everything?
It sure does. It's got it's got all of that built in. It's got its own generator and infrared
Solar
heat.
panel?
Yeah, it's good. Back massager. It's got it all.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I want to see that deluxe version.
Yep, we've got it. We got it. It's the Team 200 special.
Sweet.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate it as always. I know we'll keep in touch. Good luck in Illinois. And we will be back next time, guys. Thank you all so much. As always, any questions or anything like that, send them in, joe@ociogear.com. Look up Adam on Team 200, Deer Hunter's Moon Guide, moonguide.com. Yep, go ahead.
Almost forgot. We're going to have the introductory offer for the listeners.
Yep.
So for the last 3 days of October, they can get the Moon Guide app for 40% off.
40% off of the Moon Guide app, guys.
Yep, they don't need a code. Just go to App Store or Google Play and download it for 40% off for those last 3 days of the month.
Perfect. Sounds good, brother. Thank you.
And thank you.
All right, buddy.